So as to not disturb the meeting. I am now turning mine off, please notice. Won't happen again, that happened last week. Any member of the public also has the right to make an audio or video recording of an open session of the public meeting. A member of the public who wishes to record a meeting must first notify the chair and comply with reasonable requirements regarding audio or video equipment established by the chair so as not to interfere with the meeting. The chair is required to inform other attendees of such recording at the beginning of the meeting. We have Mr. White recording us on video, and I will gentleman from Wareham.
My name is Rishi, as I've some of you before, from Wareham, we're recording.
Okay. Roll call.
Here.
Mr. Brock, Mr.
McDonald.
Mr. Brock, Mr. McDonald, Mr. Goodell, myself, and Mr. Silver here.
And Mr. Paulson.
Oh, Mr. Paulson.
Oh, Mr. Paulson.
Old Mr. Paulson. Citizens participation. Do we have anybody, any citizens that wish to speak? Seeing none. I want to jump right to be under the town meeting warrant, since we have Mr. Evans here. And we'll go back and do the rest. I hate to hold him up.
Oh, I deal with my agenda.
The reason why I asked him comes to Article 11.
Article 11.
Article.
They want to know if they can go to the green room first and just kind of puffed up.
I am what I am.
No, sing along.
All right, before we do start, I also want to enter into the record, I was, in accordance with the Wareham Charter Article 2, Legislative Branch Section 2-4, Town Meeting Warrants, Item D, I have hand-delivered a copy of the warrant for the annual spring meeting to be held on April 23rd, 2012 at 7 p.m. And to the Chairman of the Finance Committee, Stephen D. Kaufman, Constable of Wareham, dated March 15th. Article 11. Did everybody get a new copy of the warrant?
No, I didn't.
I do.
I have the ability to emailed it to everybody. I haven't checked my email.
All right, the only difference, please, the only difference is we've started putting the explanations in. Okay, other than that, the warrant hasn't changed, it's just we're starting to add some stuff in. All right, we try to bring it, but again, it gets expensive if we're looking for you to do it on your dime rather than 410's dime.
After all, you are a paid employee.
Yes. Article 11. Going forward, we'll try to make sure everybody has everything. Article 11 is to see if the town will vote to appropriate $683,111.00 to the emergency medical salaries, services salaries, and wages account $165,219.00 to the emergency medical general expense account. Still further, to authorize $848,330.00 in estimated receipts of the emergency medical services to be used to offset said appropriation in accordance with Mass General Law, Chapter 44, Section 53E, or to do or act in any manner relative thereto. Entertaining a motion for favorable action.
Second.
By
First for discussion.
Mr. Couturier, seconded by Mrs. Brown. Discussion? Mr. Evans here. Mr. McDonald?
Through you. How do I put this? I mean, everything checks out as far as the budget goes. The money goes into the general fund.
The excess revenue.
So whatever you're generating, it's a zero expense. I mean, in the interim, in the overall, the money you're generating from the EMS department is completely offsetting.
Right. My budget last year was $769. Our revenues were $1.1 million. And with our unspent authorized budget, we turned in back like $380,000 to the general.
Okay. And that's what the ambulance issue as well, because do we not lose some revenue with that?
With the ambulances being down, we've had to call mutual aid, so whenever they transport a patient, we lose that revenue.
Okay. Was it ever a time when it was thought, and I don't know if this question goes to you, to Derek, Mr. Andrews, was there ever a time when it was considered a good idea to make this an enterprise fund?
We were an enterprise fund for 1 year, but we couldn't cover our expenses at that point. And then the next year, they moved us to an offset receipt.
Okay.
And for the last 4 or 5 years, we've been profitable, if you want to put it that way.
Well, I'm not that I'm looking for profit, but.
No, I mean, we've covered our expenses plus turned money back.
Okay.
All right, let me interrupt Mr. Andrews.
Mr. Chairman, just one footnote on that. I would not be adverse to looking at the enterprise fund again, given the fact that it does, then provide for a operation like Dave's, or an airport, or a recreation department, to really function on its own 2 feet. And the question is, when do you launch that? Because Derek and I had talked about that earlier in the year, and because of some of the difficulties in the budget, we're not able to do it. Particularly as it would have put in his line, I think to Larry's point, a set aside for capital, so that he could, to Dave's points and many times in capital planning and other members of this committee, set that money aside so that his capital, the tools that he needs to do his job would be right there within his line.
That's what, when you said you turned back 300 and,
Ballpark 380.
right, so,
All right,
As-
do we have any information as to when this was an enterprise fund? Do we know?
I think we researched it with Derek, and he has the warrant vote.
Oh, it seems prepared.
Mr. Chairman, the administration is always prepared, you know that.
It looks like the April 28th, 1997 town meeting, Article 12 had created it as an enterprise fund. So then I have the April 22nd, 2002 is where actually,
dissolved it?
yeah, it looks like it was dissolved at that point. So it would be, I move the town to vote to authorize an offset receipts account in accordance with MGL Chapter 44, Section 53E, which would be the offset receipt, and it was unanimous favorable action on there.
Yeah, something to consider, just.
Mr. Brown?
Mr. Evans, I would like to know basically what percentage over last year are you budgeting for increases with the, what is the percentage?
I'm not sure the percentage. It went from 151 to 162. And most of that's fuel costs, increased vehicle repair costs.
Oh, yeah, no, I wasn't concerned about the expenses other than the, just the salaries.
Oh, the salaries?
Yeah, just the general percentage of what
It's
you do.
probably like 3%. It was because the EMS union had a collective
You didn't
bargaining.
correct, okay.
Otherwise, everything is the same.
Okay.
Mr. Chairman, if I could.
Yes.
That also is reflective of some catch-up that the town had to do with respect to out years. Because a lot of the collective bargaining units were 4 or 5 years old. So we had to catch up, and then that's further going to be compounded into fiscal 2013 by, what we believe to be the cost going forward.
Okay, for a minute, we interrupted Larry.
No, it was
You're all
basically,
done? Okay,
well,
go ahead.
basically done, yeah. I mean, I think that's something we need to look at later down the line.
Okay.
I guess last year you turned over 383,000, you saying?
I'm right around 380. I'm not sure the exact number.
And an ambulance is what?
150?
We've been 150 for a rebuild, and new one's like 225 to 30.
225, okay. Is there a capital planning for an ambulance?
There's no warrant article for capital items.
There's no warrant article for the ambulance this year?
no capital at all.
Mr. Chairman, if I might just quickly draw a point. The administration is and has been working to secure through an alternative means, I can't go into great detail, but an ambulance, a brand new ambulance for the emergency medical services area. And also, just so that we're clear about what the costs are, because if you did run the enterprise fund as a true enterprise under chapter, and it's chapter 44, section 53.5G, you'd have to also put in the fringe benefit costs for the employees, the healthcare costs and all that, that fits into that kettle of fish. So just to be clear about that. And we are working very hard to try to get that that capital end secured through alternative means. And once again, I'll keep you and the Chairman Cruz this year, of course, updated on that process.
Okay. Mr. Trudell?
Why is Article 11 in the budget? I'm sure, or into the warrant article, I'm sure there's a logical reason. I have a proposed budget that shows the same figures.
It's an offset receipt, so they're always a separate item. It's not from tax dollars or general fund. It's offset receipt, so it's always been a separate article.
I don't recall it that way, but I'm not going to argue
Yeah.
the point.
No,
Yeah.
we've always had a separate
It's
article.
always been that way.
Okay, may I ask as to where on the budget does the excess from EMS show? What line?
When it gets brought forward, it's usually under the, it's been broken out a few times. They've had it from the miscellaneous non-recurring, so you'd see it's the offset receipts. If you look at the FY11 actual, which I'll hand out, the only thing that we do have recorded that would fill that bucket was $166,490. And I don't know whether that's, when you look at that, that's basically whether the DOR would accept that money going into our general fund, actually account for it in that way. One of the things we're going to have to do, or we will have to do this year, is to actually predict what the revenues will be for that fund, to show where to show the offsetting amount and what we expect to come back into our budget.
Okay.
Which I believe that it's, this year again, it's around 1.1 million.
Our budget for this year is about the same dollar figure, and our revenue is projected to be about the same.
Even with the ambulance down, huh?
Mr. Paulson?
We were increasing calls, so we make them up.
Mr. Paulson?
John, what you gonna put this in the envelope?
Oh.
You wanna, whose envelope is that?
That's
Sam's?
Sam. He's throwing at me. Thank you.
Mr. Paulson?
I have two questions. I want to make sure I understand something here. $380,000, did I hear this correctly, that that's basically your wages?
No, that's the excess revenue.
Excess.
Yes, that's right.
That's what gets sent back to the general fund.
Understand. So then what are your expenses for wages?
83, you wouldn't.
How much?
673.
6, I'm sorry. 6.
Well, my sheet must have been changed to 67309.
For FY13, we have budgeted $683,000.
Yeah.
And I have a question then that follows on that, although it's not my second question, but of that 683 for wages, how much is for overtime?
The overtime is 150.
Of the 683?
Yep.
And within that 150, how much is for covering for people who are off on sick days and or personal days? I'm very curious about that.
Let's see. The breakdown that I have is actually figured out at 174, but that's included if everybody takes a sick day, because I have to budget to cover those sick days. but we actually are funding ones
Down you go.
for 150.
Go.
Well,
Let me just try to do some quick to see what come up to be.
I realize Mr. Evans is doing that.
That's about 123.
So 123 of the 150 or is it 170 now?
I didn't do the sick time because that can fluctuate. If
So-
people take sick time, I have to account for it.
So it's approximately 125,000 of something of about 150,000 of overtime.
Right, plus there's additional stuff that's not by the
Okay,
authorized time
well,
off.
just to cut to the quick here, the great bulk of your overtime is to cover for people who are taking sick days.
Vacation days,
They're
holidays.
taking, well, we'll leave the holidays out of it.
Well, no, we have to because they're a 24-hour department. They have
If you'll excuse me, the holidays, in the business world, we take holidays, we pay people for it. We have vacation days, we pay people for it. We do not have the number of sick days, we don't have the personal days. I'm not gonna make, a philosophical, into a philosophical discussion, we just don't do it. What I'm trying to get at here is that personally, I think it's a different world. We're gonna have to get people hopefully to understand that things have changed. And what I'm trying to get at is the cost, my department, for these types of activities. And you're saying, give or take, it's around 150,000, about 150,000.
All right, but you have to understand, we only have 2 people working at a time. It takes 2 people to run an ambulance. So if someone takes their vacation day, I have to hire somebody. to
Vacation
fill it.
day, I don't have a problem with, I understand that. But I do, again, I don't want to get into a long discussion on this with everybody's time. I just wanted to know them. The other question I have, and it's kind of gets into the issue of why you couldn't meet your expenses when you were an enterprise fund, and I kind of understood, and correct me if I'm wrong, that when you shifted to the current system, the benefits, the handling of the benefits from an accounting standpoint was done differently. Maybe I misunderstood you.
Right.
And so my question is, within the structure that we have currently and the monies you turn back, are the benefits included? Or when the monies come back to the general fund, the benefits then are paid through a separate mechanism at town hall? Is that a clear question? Do people
Yeah.
understand what I'm trying to get at?
I do.
I don't pay it. It goes into the general, they disperse it.
And that's what I thought perhaps, and that is my question. What do the benefits cost for the EMS to the town out of the amount that is turned back?
This Chairman, we can get that number, we don't have it obviously.
Okay.
Well, but then getting back to the original question and the original point, as an enterprise fund, again, correct me if I'm wrong, if I understood you correctly or understood the administrator correctly, the benefits were included, and then when you went from being but you lost money, or if you didn't make money, then you changed the format. And then in changing the format, something happened. And the something that happened, at least as I'm sitting here trying to understand this, is that at least one thing that happened was the benefits were shifted into a different account, off of your P&L to the town, and it may not, I say may now, it may not be the bargain that we think it is. I don't know, but I just asked the question.
Mr. Fidelli?
Yes, Mr. Chairman, through you to the town administrator, if I might. As you know, capital planning has been concerned for the last 2 years about the ambulance situation, either as a rebuild or new. You mentioned that you're back onto the plan of trying to get an ambulance. I'm aware of some of those details, so I'm not going to touch that. But the question I have is, what's your backup plan? And I ask that because I personally think that we have reached a stage where the ambulance says we need to have action. I I don't think he continued to operate the way we'd like to operate.
Mr. Chairman, through you to Dave, I don't disagree. And if Dave, I think you've been harking back to my fiscal 2012 budget message, and in my fiscal 2012 Article 1, we were looking to fund the ambulance as a rebuild, and we were going to work with David on that. Backup plan, and I shared this at the capital planning meeting, I believe we emphasized it to the finance committee, is that we're going to have to look at free cash, one-time payout for one-time amount of tools, because if David doesn't have the tools to do his job, then we may as well just get out of the business.
Exactly.
So if we're gonna be in the business, we should give him the tools. It was in my 2012 budget, and once again, we didn't quite get there. It was in Article 1, and we were hopeful that, recall, I mentioned to this committee, the additional local aid came, I think, 4 or 5 days after town meeting, so that was a timing issue from the state. I am committed to getting Dave his ambulance, and I think you know that, Dave.
Yeah, I do. I just wanted to make sure that you have a backup plan and can articulate that, because I think the situation has grown desperate.
It is, and we've been through a number of meetings with state officials, and we've been working with a number of experts on the committee, capital planning committee, like Charlie Kluber, and other members. I mean, you've done a lot of research on this as well, to fashion something that works. And that something that works is going to have to either happen through that process that I outlined in a skeletal way, but it is a real process, and it is a process by which other cities and towns have received forms of capital assets, particularly as it relates to the type of work that David does. And then the second plan is that we have certified free cash at $307,000. I hope to get that certified free cash for the town sometime in the fall. So that being said, if that's another $500,000, if in fact that's the case, then we've got a plan going into town meeting with an ability to get David what he needs.
Thank you.
You're welcome.
Mrs. Brown?
Yes, through you, Mr. Moderator, I would suggest to the capital planning that if we can't come by something by the fall, that we should come up with a warrant article to present to the people of the town and let them know how dire it is, and maybe we can get something that way.
I'll pass it on to the capital planning committee in the next meeting.
Any further discussion?
Good job.
Seeing none, all in favor of the motion, signify by saying aye.
Aye.
Opposed? Abstentions? 7-0.
Thank you.
Thank you, Mr. Evans.
Chairman, the harbor master that,
Yes, the harbor master's news. The first article will be number 12, to see if the town will vote to transfer $50,000 from receipts reserved for appropriation from the harbor service permit fees to the general fund operating budget to defray the cost of harbor master seasonal personnel or to do or act in any manner relative thereto. So entertaining motion for favorable action.
So moved.
So moved, Mrs. Brown, seconded by Mr. McConnell. Discussion, please, Mr. Buckingham.
Good evening, everyone. Basically, it's I'm proposing just about the same article as last year. It's the funding is going to be used to offset the costs of seasonal personnel, things of that nature, so we can operate through the summer. I obviously rely heavily on our seasonal personnel to get us through. That's operating the pier, that's shore patrols, that's running the boats, that's pretty much everything that goes on in the waterways. It's between 2 full-time personnel and whatever the amount of seasonal people I can get to put on. So we really do rely on them heavily for this.
Questions? Okay, Mr. Trudell?
Through you, Mr. Chairman, to the town administrator. In the event that he does not get the number of people that he needs to operate his function, Will that part of that 50,000 that's not used be returned to him?
Yes, that is correct.
Thank you.
McDonald?
I'm not sure, because we're talking about the article, but one of my concerns is that there are several accounts under the harbor master, as far as permits, license, and everything. Are they shrinking?
Every year, the past couple of years, we've been staying within pretty much, every year we get about average between 118 to 128,000 into that account through the permits. It has gone up because we've put in place a few different things, and we're actually pushing people now to really actively get the permits done, because we are going out and pulling the moorings. So we do have that account. The other account that we do have is the boat excise tax, which is waterways money.
I mean, and these are governed to a certain extent by federal law and state law.
Yeah, Chapter 91.
Okay, so we have to be careful how they're spent.
Correct. As long as it's within the guidelines. The funds that we raise for our harbor service permits are, it's a water harbor permit. It's not like a waterways fund where it's like a mooring sticker. The two different things. A lot of towns have a mooring sticker, and it goes into the waterways account. Then when they passed the bylaws, they actually gave us the oversight over what this money can be used for. So I can't sit there and turn around and use it to buy trash barrels or something of that nature. It has to be specific to our department. I actually brought a bylaw book if anybody wanted it.
Any other
I always
questions?
take a new book to read.
It's great bedtime reading, Mr.
Yeah.
I've got one I can run in the office, got a few more. I believe it's
Mr.
on the
Cameron?
first page. Will give you the information on the bylaw.
Mr. Cameron?
Yes, regarding the moorings, there is a long waiting list, correct?
Oh, yes.
Okay. Can we actually, what governs the amount of moorings we can have?
Right now, we govern ourselves. The towns are designated to oversee the waterways,
Okay.
Commonwealth waters. So basically what I'm looking at is I try not to expand too much on what we currently have. So it's as a space becomes available, we replace it with another person on the list, or if someone's not paying, we pull it and we'll put another person in that location. We do have a couple areas that we have the ability to expand into, but
That's my question. Why can't we expand more moorings? I mean, will it endanger anything or do anything? Because to me, it seems like you have a long waiting list.
we do have a long
People
waiting
willing
list.
to pay.
Yeah.
Why can't we add moorings and get moorings?
I think because we really need to.
We really need to make money.
Well, I understand that, but we also have to protect our natural resources and the extent of what goes on. I mean, we've got areas that have eelgrass. We do have areas that, moorings, chains, bottoms, they cause damage. We're looking at possibly going into having to regulate what types of moorings are going to be going in if the Army Corps of Engineers pass their federal regulations. So we're looking at possibly any mooring that is in a historical eelgrass map is going to have to go to Helix. They're going to have to go to, it's called a Hazlet system, which suspends. But I don't want to, I understand we need money, but we can't make that much more at $60 per permit. And we can't go out, if we start throwing too large of a fee on, we're stepping outside the bounds of what the permit
Why do you
is
have a waiting
established.
list? People aren't willing to pay. There's someone on that list willing to pay.
But we
I don't care if they're made of
Yeah.
gold, bring the permit, whatever the federal government wants to put in there, let's
But-
put them in there. You have a long waiting list. That means, my opinion is if you have a long waiting list, I could see there's a lot of moorings out there that aren't being used, that people pay year after year because the fee is too low.
Well, they have, and that's part of our process of streamlining the bylaws. I mean, right now, you can have a mooring for 2 years with no boat on it. With no boat registered to it. But unfortunately, they can hold it. If they have a boat legally registered to them, if some people just can't put their boats out because it's $5 a gallon or $4.70 a gallon at the marinas, I mean, they're being hit everywhere. So I feel, I wish I could clean out the list. I would love to, but unfortunately, but I have to, take some, preservation into our waterways.
And you really believe that strongly, that by us adding in more moorings, that it would hurt the waterways?
Well, it could cause damage to the environment with the grass and the bottoms, and then you're starting to take areas that have open space. So that's what we protected when we passed this bylaw. Sunset Cove, Broad Cove, Swiss Beach, all those areas, when they were passed as a multi-use area, that stopped moorings from being able to go into that location. Because, I mean, if we didn't have something like that, take an area like Broad Cove, we have moorings that outline the whole cove. There's nothing in the center. It's big for shellfish habitat. We use that area to transplant. That's one of our, that's the second article I have. So we try to reestablish the fisheries. With all these extra moorings in it, I don't think it really helps that. And I think it's important to really, I would love to make more money, but I don't think we're going to make that much more. And if I can just, we're doing a good job now to the point where we're getting literally 10, 15 people left on the list that haven't paid yet. I mean, we've always been 50, 60 fighting with these people, and we're down to that small of a number. I think we're ahead of the game. I would love to make more money, but it's more important to protect the town right now.
So
I'm sorry.
okay, one more question, I'm sorry. You feel that the fees we're charging for the moorings, if we go up on that fee, rather than add moorings, if we go up on that fee, that we'd be out of line?
I don't think so. I think we can establish a fee that's it's reasonable and bring it up in increments that aren't too damaging to people.
And what are the fees right now per mooring?
It's $60 for a permit, and we have a per footage, which is $1 per foot. The town of Bourne is $75 flat fee. The town of Marion, they're running $60 plus $4 a foot. So we do have some. Each town varies extremely.
By the numbers you just said,
Yeah.
not this, but it seems like then we are actually pretty low.
We're pretty much center line. We have some towns down the Cape that are charging almost $400 for the stickers, and it's costing the town money because they're bringing into a legal issue of exceeding what the permit's about. So, because you bring in enough money to oversee the operation, rather than it's not a big. I mean, we're basically the largest marina in town, but we have to stay within reason.
Thank you.
Mr. Trudell?
To the harbor master of my high school, your predecessor and I had some long discussions on moorings. And one of his policies was, yes, I have tons of moorings, but you have to have parking access.
That was another major issue.
I didn't hear you explain that to Mr.
No, and that is correct. One of the other things is access. We have a lot of people that say, well, my friend has a house down Swiss Beach, so he said I can use this property. Well, that friend fights, they part ways, and now he has no access to that area at that point. So, I mean, there's a lot of problems. Family members we can work with on it. Obviously, it's a first come, first serve. You can come from anywhere and apply for a mooring here.
Mr. Paulson?
Well, I have a question, but also an observation. We never have fights at Swiss Beach. I just
No.
But in any
I didn't mean. I just.
I don't know. The question I have, if Marion is getting $4 per lineal foot or per foot, and we're getting $1 a foot, it would seem to me that even if you kept it at $60, there's a question in here, believe me. If you went to $4 and somebody's got a 50-foot boat, I'm guessing they could probably afford that. My question is this: if we were to go from $1 to $4, how much more revenue would we generate?
I haven't gone to the $4 one because I feel that's really out of it. What my proposal was going from $60 to $75 on the
Put
permit.
that aside. I'm
Yep.
more interested in the linear footage.
All right. Well, we've got 23,706 feet worth of boats in town. So you've got right now. I'm taking in $23,706
And
in
if we
footage.
moved it from 23,000 to $4,
Yep.
forgetting your personal feelings,
Correct.
but we are taxpayers, we all are. That would raise an additional $100,000 then,
Exactly.
right? Is that, give or
True,
take?
but I mean we're dealing with a different bracket of
But-
people also.
But just wait a second. To Dom's original question, you said you have a long waiting list.
Yep.
Test the elasticity of the marketplace. If you raised it to $4 and everybody
Sure.
says we're not going to be in Wareham anymore,
Well, they will.
then
Okay.
but that's just my point.
They'll pay.
That's just my point. Raise the fee, get the money for the town.
I
At least
understand.
consider.
I mean, Marion's regular boat, the average boat size is over 32 feet in general. Ours is 20. I mean, we have a lot of people that do struggle, and I do understand it, and I have a lot of people that come and say, what are we getting for that money? And that's what I'm trying to establish. I just can't see going in and hammering them with an extremely big number like that, which I understand. I understand what your concept is with the marinas charge that also. They go from there. But to come right into it swinging like that, I would rather gradually work into a fee that's comparable with all the surrounding towns than come right in with a large fee like that.
With all due respect, Mr. Chairman, it is comparable, because you just said that Marion's $4. That is comparable.
That's a big jump compared to $1.
Oh, okay.
It's also a neighboring town.
It's $100,000 in the fund.
Mrs. Cattouli, one of the principles in what we all know, understand retail, testing what will the market bear, all right? There's both approaches. Many failures have occurred though when we jump without considering the customer. The approach of going up $1 a foot per year and until you suddenly hit resistance, all right, is also a very, very viable way, and also is probably, I would say, from a public relations point of view, probably the best way.
I am considering fee increases, but I'm not. I just for the boater out there, I understand, and I do. I see guys that are out there that have a 16-foot boat and they barely can put gas in it, and they've had a mooring for 20 years. And, I know we're in tough times, but it's not entirely their fault that we're in this. So I need, if I can sit there and say, okay, my fee is $60 right now, we're going to propose a $75 increase. I feel that my increases, I'm trying to make them as reasonable as possible for people to absorb and gradually get into that. And even if I can come into a tier level of where every 3 years we do a $15 increase or whatever the times we can feel for it.
Sounds like a great project for an intern. Mrs. Cattouli, you've been patiently waiting.
Actually, I just want to make 2 points. First off, that a lot of the photos he's talking about are just average people like me, okay? And $4 a foot's going to make a difference because I have a slip on at a marina, and yeah, the marina pays the mooring fee, but they just pass it on to you anyway. The other thing is, and correct me if I'm wrong, but any increase to those mooring fees actually, or actually goes into the waterways account?
No, it doesn't. It goes into the receipt, receipt reserve for appropriations account,
Okay.
which was the under the bylaws.
Okay, Mrs. Brown?
May I just, what you're talking about is the boat excise tax. That goes into the waterways account.
Okay.
You start keeping a score pad. Mr. Javale?
I might point out to you, because I had a boat and I had a mooring, and since the waiting list was ultimate years, I had to make a financial decision whether I went to a marina or not. Now, I don't care what the fees are in this town. They're nowhere close to what a marina is.
I understand.
And you've got a waiting list.
Mhm.
So I understand empathy for people. But the reality is, there's a lot of people that are in marinas that can't get moorings in town.
Correct.
And if it comes to the person with a 17-foot boat paying $4 versus $1, well, that's a financial decision they have to make, just like the people in the marina. But I'm willing to bet there's many people in the marinas that would be willing to do that.
I want to correct you there,
Go
okay?
ahead.
Because there's a mooring fee charged for every boat in the marina,
I know.
okay? All right.
I paid it, Danny, but
Okay.
my point is,
All right,
it's cheap.
It's still $60.
It's still cheap.
let's not beat a dead horse. Go ahead, Mr. Paulson.
I'll just-
Mrs. Brown will be the last.
Okay, I'll carry this just one step further. We have something in the United States called the progressive income tax. So that the wealthier you are, and if you want to measure wealth in this case by the length of a boat, I will now make my point. What you could do, as a suggestion, or it's up to the selectmen, I would guess, ultimately, is to say, if you have under a 20-foot boat, it's $2 per foot. From 21 feet to 40 feet, it's $3.
Great idea.
If you have a 41-foot boat or greater, it's $4. In other words, you take care of the issue,
Yeah.
address the issue that you're suggesting is a problem, and you deal with the revenue problem that Mr. Travell is.
And that almost falls under the same issue that we had with the residency, non-residency status. We sat there and they got a push because we were charging a resident, non-resident fee, and they felt the waters are designated to the town to oversee, but it's the Commonwealth waters. That means the waters belong to all. So we had to go within a fee that was uniform. And that fell under, actually I believe it was a state rep that felt it was discriminatory because he was an out-of-town resident, he wanted his boat in a specific town, and he ended up getting hit. And I'm not trying to fight what you're saying, I'm just saying that I just look at it as the same scenario. I think if we're gonna do once for all.
Mrs. Crum?
I have to agree with Mr. Trudell. I too had a boat in a marina and it just got too expensive, couldn't get a mooring. And it's like golf. I mean, if you can't afford to play at the club anymore, you don't play at the club anymore. And I think that the majority of the people that do boat, I think that it's you have a responsibility to us to provide us with as much and as fair as possible. And I think we're way too cheap, and we need to look at it and do something about it.
Mr. Camerano, I didn't mean to cut you off.
Okay, just one quick, how many moorings does the town actually have out there?
We bill for 1,554 moorings.
1,500?
Yeah.
And one other question, some of the marinas, you allow them to have moorings that aren't slips, docks, correct?
Yes, they have the federally licensed mooring fields through the Army Corps of Engineers.
And that, are those fees paid to us, those
Those
the boats that
mooring-
are on pot in the
Correct.
thing?
Yes.
Okay, because don't they rent those like by the weekend? And
However they operate them, yeah.
Well,
Because
then,
they're licensed for commercial use through the Army Corps of Engineers permit, so like a Chapter 91 license, but it's a permit through the Army Corps. So they're mooring fields, like obviously we have two marinas, Marina and the Yacht Club issue right now that's going on, which they have mooring fields where they're allotted X amount of moorings, and they can operate there. They just have to abide by the town regulations and fees.
Mr. McDonald, I recognize you. We have stepped well beyond the scope of the article.
Yeah, that's what I was gonna say. At some point in time, I think this is more of a budget discussion.
Yes.
And
Okay,
during
but
the
I
budget,
don't also, I think it was, we're
it was
looking
really
for
good
revenues.
conversation, so, yeah.
Good discussion. As I said before, I honestly believe there's a lot of economic theory as to what point you start to, it's a diminishing return, et cetera. Great opportunity for a financial intern to come in and help the harbor master do such. And see if there is a point that works. I think Mr.
And
Paulson
absolutely, I mean,
some
we're
great
weighing all
points
options on it. I mean, we will do comparisons through all the towns.
You've heard both the upsides and you've heard the downsides.
Absolutely.
Okay, any further any further discussion on the article? Seeing none, all those in favor?
Aye.
Opposed? Abstentions? 700. Next article is Article number 15. To see if the town will vote pursuant to Chapter 44, Section 53 and a half of Massachusetts General Laws to authorize the use of a revolving fund for the purpose of shellfish propagation programs, and enhancement of shellfish resources within the town, which fund shall be credited with receipts from all commercial shellfish permits and 20% of all fees derived from the issuance of recreational shellfish permits under the authority and direction of the shellfish constable and town administrator. Such expenditures not to exceed $30,000, and further that the unencumbered balance as of the close of fiscal year 2012 in the existing shellfish revolving account be transferred to the revolving fund established for the fiscal year 2013, or to do or act in any manner relative thereto. Shall I entertain a motion for favorable action?
So moved.
Mr. McDonald, seconded by Mr. Camerano. Discussion?
Explanation?
We've been asked for an explanation.
Every year we have to bring this before a Springtown meeting. This fund is used for our shellfish propagation. It helps us cover costs associated with if we have to go with a biologist down. We have an outbreak of mortality or what, so be it dermo, QPX, any of these diseases that we can deal with shellfish. If we have to deal with it, we pay for it through this fund. Last year we did a shellfish relay of 1,000 bags that we purchased, and that allows us to get into that propagation effort. Upwellers, depending if we can operate them or not. So cover some of the costs.
Any other, Mr. Paulson?
The question of eelgrass comes up periodically. You
Yep.
mentioned it yourself. Can you give us a sense as to what's going on with eelgrass generally? Just kind of ballparking it?
I'm not a biologist, but we're not sure. I mean, the whole bay is like this. Buzzards Bay has areas that have completely depleted grass. Back when Bill Ellis used to be the harbor master, I used to go out with steel grates, and we'd have to break the bottom to do a shellfish relay. And that year that we disturbed the bottom, we had eelgrass reappear, and this was in Broad Cove. This was off of Lydia's Island. So I mean, water quality, sediment. I mean, it could be a big factor of things. Moorings, again, you look at a Google Earth, you can actually pick it up, look at an overview where moorings are, and you can actually see if there's an area in eelgrass where the moorings are, because they destroy the path where the chain drags. So,
My question is it getting better or worse or same or
I would have to say it is probably getting worse. It's hard to say.
Thank you.
We are getting a little beyond the scope again. Mrs. Cattouli, try to stay with the article.
Yeah, has this been done annually? Because I don't think I've ever seen it written quite in this detail before.
Nope, this is exactly the same one as last year. It just breaks down the chapters and the percentages between the commercial and the recreational.
Okay.
Mr. Camerano?
No, just saying that the shellfish is actually going a lot better recently. Doing a good job.
Any further discussion? Seeing none, all those in favor?
Aye.
All those opposed? Abstentions? Passes 7-0-0.
Thank you.
Thank you very, very much.
Good job.
Good night.
Good night.
Good night. I'd like to step back to the CPC-related articles. They were supposed to appear tonight. They had some scheduling conflicts with, various members had some other scheduling conflicts, and they requested to come in next week. What they'll do is they'll delay their own meeting, come do the work with us, and we'll be able to handle that then. Should be pretty quick. I'd also like to back up a little bit to the article explanations. We will be putting explanations on the report. The town administrator, the board of selectmen have agreed to assist on their articles. All other parties who have submitted articles, even if they're submitted through the board of selectmen, will be requested to provide their explanations in the spirit of transparency to the voters of the town meeting. However, we cannot really and truly hold the town administrator responsible for those. If it's a BOS appointed committee, then we'll have to ask for their cooperation. Everyone else, it was supposed to be submitted when they submitted citizens petitions, the articles. And I'll ask the town moderator to help us on that. All right. Kelly has agreed to help coordinate this. In our wonderful relationships with her, when it comes to edits, folks, when she asks you to edit something, please let's do it.
Mr. Chairman, if I could just make a quick statement.
Mr. Andrews.
Thank you. I want to compliment Kelly for keeping us on track many, many times with respect to the warrant articles and explanations. And I just want to share with the committee and listening audience, because last year I think what we did from the administration side is went beyond the scope of what we were supposed to be doing with respect to trying to track down this department and town hall that had put in warrant articles that were not legally vetted properly. We kept chasing and chasing and chasing, and at the 11th hour, people were calling the town administrator's office, board of selectmen's office, to try to find out, well, where's the explanation? Well, there was no explanation because the article had to be held and fixed, if you will. So, working with you and Mr. Chairman Cruz is here, we'll continue to put together the best plan as it relates to the departments on the town administrator's purview and jurisdiction. We will get the explanations. As you know, just for everybody's edification, the petitioners' articles, they're responsible to come in, and even there was a lot of chasing around for those folks because they didn't write up what they intended to be as the explanation in the article. Some of them were fairly technical, as I'm sure you recall. So I just want to make that clear, and if there's no disrespect to anybody around this table, with the administration, you know, I guess I'll have to hire some private investigators to work for us if we're gonna get the explanations properly, if that's what the town wants me to do. But, you know, I think the cooperation that we forged on this matter is a good process going forward.
All right, I want to thank you for also authorizing us to use of Mr. Brasso to deal with this process, and I anticipate that we'll probably get a request for transfer from the reserve fund. Mr. Bronk, you said something?
No, I guess I didn't say anything, but what I was thinking, I thought that we always did the explanations, didn't we? No?
No, we used to when we first started, we did. She is correct, long before you are joining us,
I
we
understand
used to
that.
do the explanation.
Bob and I did them last year. Bob and I did them.
And the town moderator has asked that they be done by whoever initiated the article, so I'm going by her guidance.
Well, I'm just, all I'm saying is, you know, when this came first, when this came down this way, and everybody's making a big deal about it, we've always done it. It's something that we've always done.
Well, nobody's saying it's not being done. One of the problems that came up is explaining articles that we don't know anything about. Would you like to write the nitrogen article explanation?
Absolutely. You're giving it to the right person.
No, not the recommendation in your opinion. You
No,
want to
I'll give you the facts. I'll give you the facts.
details.
That was good.
I'll give you the facts, baby. I'll give you the facts.
That was always part of it, was making sure that the explanation was clear and represented what the
And that's
presented.
exactly what the FinCom always did in the prior, is give the
We're not
facts.
saying no, all we're saying is Claire has asked that the people who present the article, all right, are the ones who write the explanation, and we write our recommendation, which for a long time was mixed, I understand, mixed performance on that. And that's where we also have to look at where we're gonna dedicate our effort. That's the other side.
I'm gonna dedicate the effort to the inside of my eyeballs. Hurry up.
Pardon?
Well, on the other hand, to be frank, I think some of the town people actually look for the finance committee's
Absolutely.
opinion, even though it,
There's
I
two
mean,
different issues
even
here,
though
Bob.
every article gets back to dollars and cents. I don't care
I
how round around the block you go, it ends up being
Recommendation.
money.
That's
Absolutely.
what he's talking about, is the recommendation.
Recommendations,
We will
there's two
continue to do
different things
that.
going on there.
Right, we will continue to do the recommendations. What we're
Not the
asking is,
explanation.
what is the explanation?
Okay.
So that people, you know, I believe what Claire's trying to do is reduce the amount of explanations that have to be done on the floor at the town meeting. So it inevitably happens, and if you have an explanation, everybody picks up a warrant on the way in, they can at least read what it is, and we can back off some time. We're gonna desperately need to back off some time.
Can I just make one comment, Mr. Chairman? And the reason being that we've reviewed in the past is when people come in and make an article, some folks haven't been completely transparent about what effect their article is going to have on the townsfolk. And we've always tried to lay out the facts as far as, I mean, if they want to come have you buy a golf course, they're only going to tell you what the good things are about the golf course. They're not going to tell you everything about it. And that's always been the FinCom's responsibility, and the townspeople have looked to the FinCom for their, as you said, your recommendation, but to make sure that they're getting the facts on that article.
That's why we would like the explanations prior to us considering the article.
Okay. You follow me, John?
Non-political bias is what we
Exactly.
call.
Now, back to the budget articles, if we may, town administrators. The first one would be number 5, to see if the town will vote to fix the salary and compensation of the following elected officers: town clerk and town moderator and any other elected officers as provided in section 108, chapter 41, general laws as amended, and to raise and appropriate a sum of money thereto, or to act in any manner relative thereto.
The numbers going to be?
Mr. Chairman, the moderator's per diem is $118, and the clerk's salary is $62,428.60.
Is that the same as last year?
Yes,
400 and change.
$62,428.60.
Is that also, can I ask a question?
She also,
Also, the deputy moderator, is that not part of it this year, or? You probably need to, we did vote for him last year to, I believe, if I'm correct, there was an amendment made on the floor to make sure he got
No,
paid.
He shouldn't get paid.
that's a non-paid position, I'm pretty sure.
I thought there was an amendment.
No, I don't think so.
We can verify that with the moderator.
yeah, the clerk also receives a $700 stipend for being a registrar of voters. On the,
The registrar.
as a registrar.
Yeah.
It's
So
same
it's
time.
just $700 for the register, for the voting register.
That's right.
Chair will accept the motion.
So moved.
Second.
It's not that easy this time.
Alrighty. I move favorable action on Article 5 with the insertion of $118 per diem for the town moderator and $62,428.60 for the town clerk, and additional $700 stipend for being registered voters.
Second.
The 62,428.60 is per annum.
Thank you.
Okay.
He's tough tonight, I'll tell you.
That's Mrs. Couturi, second.
Second.
Any discussion? Seeing none, all those in favor?
Aye.
Opposed? Abstentions? 7-0. Article 13, see if the town will vote to approve any and all of the following GL, Chapter 44, Section 53.5 revolving funds, or to do and act in any manner relative thereto. I'll read the amounts and then I'll go for motion.
Where are we at?
Article 13, page 3.
They better be right.
Pardon? Council on Aging, Transportation, 200,000. Library, 20,000. Council on Aging, Social Programs, Daycare, 50,000. Council on Aging Activities, 50,000. Social Recreation, 50,000. And Recycling, 50,000. Have a motion for favorable action?
50,000?
50,000. Have a motion for favorable action? I'm sorry.
If I may, Mr. Chair, it's on the budget this way. I think it's just a scrivener's error. The library should be 30,000. It was voted up by 10,000 in the last town meeting.
I think they should vote it down.
30,000.
Yeah.
Start with me tonight, Don.
30,000 for books.
Have a motion for favorable action?
I'll second it for discussion.
Making a motion first, Mr. Paulson? Yeah.
So moved.
No, it's
So
not.
moved, Mr. Donovan. Mr. Paulson, this is second, thank you. Discussion?
Go ahead. I'm just adding up, what Jim was concerned about the limit thing again. This $300,000, am I correct? So I'm adding it up. You got the COA at 200,000, and then another 50,000, and then another 50,000. But what is social recreation? Who does that follow under? What department does that fall in?
That's social services.
Social services program.
Well, we don't have a social services, right?
Well, maybe you do now.
We have a COA/social services. Am I correct?
Yes,
You're right.
you are correct.
But it's one department, correct?
No, it's actually two separate areas.
Okay. Only recently is that.
Please.
Through the chair, only recently is that two people occupying this position.
Mr. Chairman, once again, there is a council on aging, there's a council on aging acting director. There's a social services director. We have a number of social service programs in town government. So that's what for program supplies, equipment, contract instructors, and other types of activities.
Can I rephrase my question and ask, is this the first time that we've had a director of social services?
You are correct.
Thank you.
I have a
Mr.
question.
McDonald?
You said 200,000 for the COA transportation. In the budget, it's showing 210. And the revolving funds, and this is the 321 version of the.
The 210 maybe what is budgeted, but this says current spending limit. There's a difference.
Well,
So I would say, if I may, Mr. Chair, that we'll put the 210 in there for, and we'll change that on the floor. I think that may have been raised at last year as well, because I believe this grid was basically cut and pasted over from.
So you need to amend the 200 to 210?
Please.
we'll just make that now, just.
And again, I asked, is that over the limit?
Yes.
That would be 310. Well, do we know what is the 1% of the previous tax levy? Do you know what the cap is?
It's 200.
Can't guess, so. No, I'm serious.
Well, the previous tax levy for what we had by the DOR with the growth in there and the authorized would be $31,596,953.
31 million, sorry, how much?
$31,596,953.
500? Okay. So 315,000 would be the 1%. So we're within the 1% number on the council on aging. That was your question?
Yeah, well,
Yeah,
that
we all
was,
set.
yeah.
We're not over the limit. Any other questions? Mr. Cameron?
These, on Article 13, these numbers on the current spending limits, are they voted on by the town? Is that what this is, these numbers, or are there guidelines to these numbers? How, no, maybe I'll rephrase the question. The COA social programs daycare, it says 50,000 there. Where do we get this $50,000 number from? What mandates that number?
Answer the question?
Mr. Chairman, these are the upper limits. I think somebody mentioned that earlier. We may not hit these upper limits. The revenue sources, you can see there's a column for them, for user fees or fundraising and other types of activities that have been, once again, traditionally put forth under an article under Chapter 44, Section 53.5 as a revolving fund. So the upper level limits, so that you may not hit those targets, Dominic, but the idea is that we're looking for the authorization to have current spending limit set at a certain number.
These are the caps provided the revenues are attained.
That's correct.
You can only spend what's
That's it.
attained.
Yes.
Mrs. Brown?
Go ahead, I don't want to interrupt you, go ahead.
I'm sorry, I have a couple of, that opens up another question for me. Can we lower these limits? Or are we mandated to keep this amount? What I'm getting at is, bottom line is here is, we can use money in a lot of other places. I mean, $50,000 buys a lot of coffee and donuts and line dancing. I mean, are these numbers, can they be cut to move elsewhere? It just seems like a lot of money that's, I'm not saying these programs aren't good, but is there a way to lower these limits to put money elsewhere? That's my question.
Answer the question?
Mr. Chairman, they're site-specific, so I'll use the library as an example. I know the former trustees in the room. There are fines, fees, and other fundraising for the fund for supplies and books. So you can't, I don't know, a user fee is a user fee for the specific use that you're paying for, or that you're collecting the revenue for. So it can't be transmitted or over to another account on it.
Okay, you answered my question. What comes in it? Okay.
It's like a funnel going into a particular program based upon what we anticipate the funding to be. And we may not hit that top number because it's, as it says, it's a current spending limit for the fiscal year.
But it's a limit of
It's
it.
a
Okay,
limit,
I understand
upper
now.
ceiling.
Thank you.
Mrs. Brown?
I personally have a problem paying a social services director when we have to cut school teachers. And we never had one before. We've only had one the last, I don't know how many months, so I think it's frivolous spending. And I just think it's wrong.
Mr. Chairman,
Have we had a social recreation account
Mr. Chairman,
before?
I'm sorry. If I might, there's no salary line here, this is.
No, that's what I'm asking, have we had
Okay.
social
There's
recreation?
no, this is not for a salary, this is.
I know, I'm saying,
Okay,
I'm
so-
asking if we've had this revolving account?
Yes, we have.
That's,
And as
that's
far as-
the issue
as
that
a-
we're addressing, we're not addressing who's,
Yeah, it's way beyond the
Who's in
scope, if
charge?
I might also add, Mr. Chairman. Because what you're talking about are program supplies, equipment, contracted services, that once again, that cover a broad range of things that we do. I'm happy to sit down with any member of the community and talk about it, but there's no salary in this line. I understand what Dawn is saying.
Oh, okay,
There's
all
no
right,
salary.
that's fine, as long as it's not a salary in there.
Mrs. Cattouli?
What I was trying to make my point, Mark, was I had asked several months ago, okay, to have the COA, Social Recreation Director, et cetera, put on our agenda for an explanation, okay, before we ever got to the budget process. My concern is with the limits that set by law, okay, on these revolving funds being so much money in a revolving account combined in a department, okay? That is my concern. That at this point, you're $310,000 and an additional $50,000, all under the same department. Because according to this organizational chart that you handed us some months ago, there is no social recreation department. Okay? That at this point is falling under the Council on Aging department. That was my concern.
Mr. Chairman, if I might, I'm happy to provide you with any additional information if you want somebody to come forward before the committee. We're talking about revolving accounts here in an article that set limits and talk about uses and use of revenues. That's what this is about. I'm happy to address that issue at any particular time, and I'll forward to the committee the job description that I, as town administrator, have the ability to make the day-to-day decisions that I will make with respect to people working in different areas of town government. So if in fact the committee wants a copy of the job description, I'll show it to you.
I don't think we're looking for job
No.
description. I think Mrs. Cattooli's point is that that's all in the same department. All right, Council of Aging and the social services. We've now hit 360,000, which is in excess of the 1%.
I will
That's,
ask,
that's.
I will ask town council to take a look and see if we in fact can.
Chair will
make some
entertain a motion
modifications.
to table.
Sure. Motion to table.
I'll
Second,
that.
any discussion?
Well, I had something to say. When I was looking at the social recreation, I was looking at the revenue sources. And again, when you go down the revenue sources, they're pretty well straightforward. But then when you get down to this one and the recycling, they're a little more confusing because your revenue source is program supplies, equipment, contracted instructors, and others. And then your use is basically the same thing as your revenue source. So I'm having a hard time with that concept of how you're making money off of it and then using it for the same thing. And I can see user fees.
No, we're not making money off of it. What it is we're being paid user fees.
It says revenue source. That's the source of revenue.
They're user fees, they're all user fees.
It doesn't say user fees on this.
Pardon?
That's
Oh,
what
I
I
think
mean.
that's
That's what
it.
it
That's what I'm
means.
saying.
Yeah,
But that's what it means, is user
Yeah.
fees.
Okay,
You can only spend what you receive in user fees, you can't
Mhm.
spend any more.
I understand that, but if you go to the ones above it, they all say user fees. When you get down to this one, it does not say user fees.
Yeah.
So
Well, that can be corrected, it's on the
I'm
table.
okay with that. I
So
just,
we'll take a look at it.
We're taking a motion
That's-
to put it on hold, all that can be corrected before next week.
I'm,
Okay. Have a motion to put it on hold, all in favor?
wait, there was no second.
I'm sorry. Dick seconded.
Dick seconded.
All opposed, abstentions, 700. If that will be the first item on the agenda next week. All right, I'll talk to you later, so
Yeah,
what
okay, just-
we have to have in attendance.
I'm gonna ask town council about tomorrow.
Okay. If anyone else has any other questions on this, would you please forward them? Can they forward it there? Any other questions that might have on this?
Ms. Sullivan would be certainly happy
Would you
to.
please forward your questions to the town
Thank you.
administrator, CC, Mr. Sullivan,
Yeah,
and
and Mr.
myself,
Chairman,
please?
if I could just also, if people want further explanation, because I just want to speak to the chart for 1 second, okay?
Hmm?
We did the best, literally, as we put the chart up in town hall, hallways, Parts of it changed as we were speaking, because there were people that are leaving and coming and going, and you think changes are being made. So I'm happy to try to update it as often as we can for not only this body, but for the general public.
Okay, next article is Article 14. See if the town will vote to transfer and appropriate from available funds, including funds previously appropriated for other uses or retained earnings, or to raise a sum or sums of money to appropriate to accounts for the purposes here specified to, or take any action related hereto. Basically, what they're asking to transfer $55,000 from the town accountant's wages to the finance committee reserve fund, based on the last transfer we talked about. $22,000 from long-term debt to the town accountant professional services. $20,000 from long-term debt to the treasurer collector tax title. $62,000 from long-term debt to municipal maintenance. $500 from the police uniform. $500 from regular police wages to the police uniform. $12,500 from regular wages to professional services for the police department. $3,850 police regular wages to police repairs. $3,007 from police regular wages to police expenses. $55,103 from police regular wages to police fuel, and $4,000 from onset parking to parking meter maintenance.
So moved.
Motion, Mrs. Brown, second.
Second.
Second from Mr. Panorama. Discussion? Yes.
When we, of course, the one on the first one, the line item for the town accountant regular and the finance committee, all for that one, right away. When I get down in there and I start looking at these transfers inside the police department, it reminds me that when I look back at the police budget under 2013, the one, I guess the latest reiteration of this, it's showing a projected, FY projected of $482,266. Does that have something to do with some of these transfers? We're obviously over, the budget was $402,266, we're over budget in that area. Is that what this has to do with?
Yes, I did. I took the liberty of placing those transfers in there. It's just parking, so I'd be able to really see it. In all honesty, I don't know whether I should wait until after town meeting for that, but I'm just trying to get an idea of, give everybody the best idea of where I'm projecting it out. As it is a projection, that's, if that happened, that's what I would see for their expense budget.
Right, so when I look at the difference, obviously there's a, more or less, there's an $80,000 difference between the budget and the actual expenditures. And if I was to go through and add up these line items, it would come close to that 80,000 is what you're saying.
Mr. Chairman, yeah, it's really within the department, and the department, I'll just give you a couple examples. Just on the police uniform, from regular to police uniform, we signed a contract with the dispatchers. We had to provide them with $500 worth of dispatching uniforms. The next one, if you will, police regular to professional services. There were increases in costs for matrons, which are required, obviously, on public safety and police work. Police regular, $38.50 to police repairs. That is the infamous front stairs of our police department. So, a year or so ago, you take a look and try to get into the police department, it's like climbing Mount Everest. The repairs were done within the police department budget. The next item with regards to $3,007, that's Hurricane Irene with respect to expenses that had hit us, that we are working on getting reimbursement from the federal and state government.
Okay.
$50,103, just real quick. We pegged, Larry, the fuel cost when we built the budget for the police department at $2.38 per gallon. We're now paying in the vicinity of what, $3.70 a gallon, so that's $55,000. $55,103 is being moved to cover those exponential costs. And then with regards to onset parking and parking meter maintenance, that's for electricity repairs, purchases of tickets to get the program working within the cycle of the current fiscal year.
I'm just trying to marry the two things. That's what I'm trying to do.
You're absolutely correct.
One thing I do, if I may.
It's a reduction in wages, right? You have noticed you reduced in your production, you reduced wages by 80.
I have
And
reduced
you've
it.
increased expenses by 80, so it reflects
The total transfers are probably around 73,500. So there's-
74, yeah.
Yeah,
4,970.
Okay, it's my understanding the monies from the long-term debt are related to
The Tremont
the
nail.
Tremont nail
Right.
mortgage that was put in. It was basically,
If
that
we,
money's appropriated but not really needed.
correct, if we vote it in October, then we have to budget for it for the year, because if it was voted down, somebody would have to pay it, and it's on the town. We've moved it to spring this year, so that we won't have to vote that extra money in there. Which means we won't have transfers, the availability to transfer out of there, but we're using our dollars right away, and we're not just creating a spot.
Let's stick to this year. Okay, that's the source of the money, Mr. Paulson.
Well, just to follow up on that question, I guess again, a philosophical point, we use debt to pay for operating expenses. And generally, I'd say I'm not terribly fond of that idea, and I was unaware that we're using the Tremont nail to do this. So are we in effect taking money away from the CPC? Is that what's in the process of happening here? Bottom line?
No, we're using town money. We had to put forward town money to cover the CPC if the town voted against the CPC paying for that money. So that's pure town money.
And so what's gonna happen, so the money, again, I'm sorry that I'm so slow on this. So roughly I added up as $104,000. Somewhere, if there was gonna be $104,000 to be used to pay for something,
It would come off the debt service line.
right, that the CPC is responsible for, that we ultimately are responsible for.
It would, our town debt service line, if you looked on the budget where the debt service is, what we did was raise enough money to cover that. If the CPC did not pay that money, if that was voted down, somebody had to pay it. That would be the town's responsibility on there. So we're not taking funds away from the CPC. We actually were putting in a buffer, if you will, to cover it as a just in case.
Our guarantee.
I get it.
I got
in our budget.
Mr. Chairman, if I could also point out, I don't know,
Mr. Paulson, are you satisfied?
it's backup
As
plan.
much as I can be.
Mr.
Make a
Jackson?
good thing, probably a good thing. I just want to make it clear, something. This is not taking money from debt. This is extra capacity that we have in the line. And we're covering our bases to make sure that if something happened to that first article, correct me if I'm wrong, Derek, we'd have that built-in kind of shock absorber.
Normally, that money would fall to free cash, correct?
You are
Because
correct.
it would be under spending of an appropriation, even though the appropriation was done as a guarantee.
But the point of the fact is that it's an appropriated dollar.
Yes.
It's not in debt. We're not
Okay,
taking
no, I
something from
understand
debt.
that. It
Okay.
was an appropriated dollar.
Right.
Any other questions?
If I-
Madam Mr. Chair, the article itself is really the language that you see above. These numbers in here, I really placed in there as an explanation. So when we do the motion, these numbers would be spoken to as that. So we do have the ability to do more transfers under this article. It's my understanding. I haven't been asked for any, but there is that caveat out there. So I don't want you, if you vote on this tonight, and I had to bring something else forward, I just want to leave that out in the open for everybody to.
Can we vote on it and retract it?
You can table it.
We can table it. Do you want
We
to
could
table?
we could table it until,
Mr. Chairman, if I might, I would respectfully request a vote, and if we have to modify, we'll bring it back as a modification, and let the committee take its time to work it.
all right, that would require us to rescind their vote and to re-vote.
I do understand that, Mr.
Okay.
Chairman.
And my only concern
Is the
with
committee
that,
comfortable with that? or-
no, I'm not, if it comes back before the warrant goes out to print, when it's final, if it comes in after that, then our vote's still showing up on there as favorable, and we may change our mind at that. I'm not saying we would change our mind, don't get me wrong, but we may change our mind because something's added here that we don't agree with, but it's gone out to print, and now it's votes on there.
Yeah, if you're gonna rescind it,
Mr. Cameron?
I'll make a motion that we just pass it. I'll make a favorable on the motion. Did we already do that?
Already have that.
I'm sorry, I apologize.
Mrs. Patulli, did you have a comment?
No, I mean, I don't see that, you're gonna have everything you've got in before we go to print.
If I may, that's what I would
Yes, I
say.
don't think that's a concern.
If
If
it's
he's gonna
coming,
give us something else, he's gonna give it to us before we go to print.
That's a promise from the,
that's a promise from me. I'll put out to.
There's another piece of this. First off, all these transfers are under the authority of the town meeting anyways, and it would come up for discussion and debate on the town meeting floor. If there's additions and we're unable to take any action, I would surely think we would stand up and state our opinion.
Yeah, we're the first ones that can amend an article anyway.
Yes, we could even amend
Amend
it.
it, exactly.
I'm okay with that. I just, I don't wanna see this go from how many line items to 37 line items. And then we, believe me, I hope not either. I'm sure you guys don't either, but it could happen.
I'm good.
All right, are we tabling
Sky
it or
could
not?
fall.
No.
We'll take,
We gotta vote on it.
Well,
Okay,
Vote on the
all,
table.
any more discussion? All those in favor?
I,
Opposed? Abstentions? 700. Article number 29.
Mr. Chairman, I can relate to you in talking to, Derek and Charmaine, talking to municipal maintenance director, Mark Gifford, as the article reads, he was just looking to use $15,000 from the special account for cemetery sales of lots and graves for the routine care and maintenance of town cemeteries. Once again, it seemed like a regular housekeeping matter for me. I must have given it not here tonight, but do you have anything else?
No, that was it.
That was it?
The place, I think we had the same one on last year or two, I believe.
And they do a good job with it. They really do a good job.
Thank you for saying that. I'm sorry, I didn't mean to get up in front of the motion, but I just wanted to express it so that
I
I
make
could share with you what I knew about it.
a motion for favorable action,
second.
For Article 29.
29.
Second, Mr. Trudell. Discussion? Seeing none, all those in favor?
Aye.
Aye.
Opposed? Abstentions? 700.
Anybody else?
Mr. Chairman, if I could just beg your indulgence, I know, I think that concludes what we had planned to go over this evening, am I correct?
No.
No?
No? You? Yeah. Nice try. Very nice try. I commend you, sir. To see if the town will vote to raise and appropriate and transfer from available funds to defray charges and expenses of the town, including debt and interest, and to provide for a reserve fund for fiscal year beginning July 1st, 2012, and ending June 30th, 2013, and as more particularly described in the report of the Wareham Finance Committee, to do or act in any manner relative thereto. That's Article 6.
Article 6.
That's the budget.
Oh, the budget, yeah.
That is the budget.
Mr.
May
Chairman,
we have an update, please? I don't think we want to go line by line right now.
Mr. Chairman, I would ask that the committee hold this item because we have been working diligently with the Board of Selectmen and the Superintendent of Schools and the school committee and the esteemed finance chairman to come up with a budget plan that I think meets everybody's needs, the basic needs that we have. We know that there are going to be cuts. That was in my budget message that I delivered in December. And I just want to share this with the committee, what I know about the process, that a couple of things that I've been monitoring and paying very close attention to, not only at the state level, but at the local level. At the state level, there is a movement to have the House and Senate Ways and Means Committees agree to, as they did last year, sooner rather than later, a budget local aid resolution that would cement in the numbers that we have placed in the budget to the best of our ability to, with our knowledge that we have with respect to revenue. and that's $1.552 million of unrestricted local aid for the town, and $12,225,000 in change for Chapter 70 funds for the school district. We had a budget workshop that we all attended and participated in last Saturday, that, you know, in my opinion, moved the process along, probably not as speedily as I would like, if you will. We are working on, and I know the school committee is meeting tonight, to talk about some of the ideas that we put forward. That being said, I'll digress for 1 second. The action committee made up of Superintendent Rabinovich, Chairman Jeff Sweat, Selectwoman Ellen Begley, myself, and Mary Jane Driscoll from Capital Planning, and myself have put forward some ideas about additional revenue enhancements in schools that I would like to see if the school committee could at least discuss and talk about. Get back to the Board of Selectmen, Finance Committee as to what their plan is with regards to, you know, once again, some additional revenues for transportation in the school district. We are also monitoring in this budget. You have very, very conservative local revenue estimates based on new growth and based on local permitting. That being said, there'll hopefully be some form of a template budget, I'll call it, foundation budget to go forward. Hopefully, I would like to think over the next several days, if not within a week. I know we're up against it in terms of time. We have looked at the budget. Derek and I have worked, you know, beyond just every particular point that we can to look to be able to bring additional focus and concentration on the budget. I would ask that this be tabled until we get a chance to look at those plans, particularly as it relates to what the school committee does this evening. Do you want to add anything to that then?
We received a document on 3/17, now this is 4 days later, there are some changes. Could you at least point to the line items that changed, so we save us a little trouble having to sort through them ourselves?
The first large change, if you went to page 5 of 6, which would be the school, you'll see that the net school spending has been increased by approximately, I believe, $137,000.
That's in which column?
That would be administration column.
The administration FY 2013 budget?
Correct.
All right, so you've increased that number?
I've increased that number approximately $137,000.
Could you read us the full number now, please?
Yes, the new number is $25,140,794 for net school spending. The non-net has stayed the same at $1,341,652 for a total of $26,482,446.
The net effect that is that line upward.
We did adjust that line upward, we increased that, the net school spending.
I'm sorry, Mr. Chairman?
Yes.
Is that the school committee's actual voted on number?
No, that's in the next column.
No, that's just the town.
That is reflected in the next column?
Correct.
27 million.
Okay, thank you.
Well,
Any other changes?
Yes, to do that, some of the lines that we've changed is the police, and also, and speaking with Mr. Gifford there, who's not too happy with me, it's basically turning off the streetlights account, not funding that account, which means the onset lights there not being turned on.
Where is that?
And that is on page 4, and again, we're still on the administration column. And that is approximately 2/3 of the way down.
Oh, I see it, yeah.
Mr. Chairman, if I could just add one footnote to this, so that I have had the darndest time trying to get all those lights to stay on at one time. It's an antiquated system, it's some of the parts you can't even get anymore, so you know what? We'll bring them down for a year, be able to go after. Mr. Giffen and I have been looking at some grant sources that perhaps can get us new heads set up for, say, beginning of next fiscal year. Once again, it's been probably paid more on repairs and maintenance of them than we did actually on the actual purchase of them.
So there was a police reduction, I'm seeing the same number.
Yeah, I'm seeing the same number too.
There should have been a reduction on there.
I don't see
It
that.
hasn't changed.
Police wages.
Nope, same number.
That is,
Oh, isn't it higher? No,
no, it's definitely not higher.
it is the same number.
That is the same number on there.
I'm not going back and forth. Yeah.
So it looks like the main change was in the street lights account there. And I'm trying to remember where else I moved from, but I thought it was the police, but maybe I got nervous there, so.
I'll get there.
You afraid of driving home tonight?
Yeah. Oh, I broke my tail light.
Now, didn't you,
Okay, those are the main numbers, you're gonna come back to us, correct?
Yeah, we'll
Yeah.
bring it back.
didn't the shellfish change a little bit?
I did speak to Mr. Buckminster there, and we went over his budget, so,
That changed a little
because
bit.
I don't have the old version in front of me, so you
Yeah,
have to excuse me.
Yeah, the 317 one said 189,000 and
Okay,
the new one says 192. And then you've come down on his expenses though. The 317 one said 34,756 and this one says 32,972.
and I've been speaking with Mr. Buckminster, he made that request that if the way the reduction was working, it would have been another staff on there, and we did have some room to move out of expenses in order to keep that person on board, because to lose somebody for $3,000 when maybe you can reduce out expenses doesn't make all that much sense.
Mr. Paulson?
I have two questions, and they are linked. If the school department were to stay with their $27,185,000 budget, if they wouldn't budget on that, we would have to use that figure then in our final warrant. Is that not correct? And then the second question will follow on that.
Mr. Chairman, I would have to ask for a legal opinion on that, because I don't intend to bring forward an unbalanced budget. I would like to think that the actions that would possibly even be taken by the time we're talking about this would take some shape and some form of compromise would take hold. But I would have to ask legal counsel. I don't know the answer to that question. I don't know if we have to hold that number in there, per any legal parameter, and I would ask town council that question.
Well, then, this will be question 1.5. I
So
assume
I have a new one here, I didn't know you needed.
Please. Renee?
this is question 1.5, I'm just following up on that answer, and I thank you for it. I assume that we'll have an answer to that particular question by next week? Since time is, as they say.
Yes, time is of the essence.
Yes, I was gonna say wasting, but it's probably isn't.
We're gonna work on it, yeah. I'm not gonna commit to a particular timeline, but I will ask town council tomorrow.
Okay.
And the second question now, on Saturday, we were told that the budget reflected essentially 3.5% pay cuts for non-employees, as I recall, something like that. Is that still reflected in this budget?
3.75%.
3.7. And where does that stand in terms of going to the respective, this was Saturday, we talked about it, including most of us, or all of us. And where does that stand from a procedural standpoint as it pertains to the unions?
Mr. Chairman, for you, we have a notification that I believe has gone out. We have also through our negotiations process, already alerted the unions under Chapter 150E. We would have to impact bargain the changes to respective areas for each of the 11 collective bargaining units. So those notifications have gone out, and we'll be sitting down with the unions very shortly to talk with them. Many of them already were in. You might have received a copy that we're already in negotiations with them regarding fiscal 2012. And I think, just to remind the committee, we caught ourselves up from going back to 2007 on those, and that's reflected in the line that needed for each department. But that notification has taken place, so that's where we are.
Hey, you said you were negotiating under Mass Section
150E,
150E.
Chapter 150E.
Follow-up? Did you have a follow-up?
Well, I guess question 2.5, kind of similar to 1.5.
Bad turn.
Yes, I'm
Question
sorry.
3.
I understand that, and thank you for that, pointing that out to me. Question 2 3/4 then, if you will. So this process that you're speaking to in terms of the timing, again, we have this issue with, from our smaller standpoint, of having certain things done probably within the next week. Is it likely, is it possible that this will all be taken care of within a week?
Mr. Chairman, maybe I can have town council come to the next meeting. I think the gentleman doesn't quite understand the process. We need to notify the unions that it is our intent to reflect to them, which, once again, many of them have already been informed, our decisions to reduce the budget. That's a process that's going to take longer than a week. So let's just all, if you look up Chapter 150E or Google it or whatever, just, if you can take a quick look at it. We're serving them notice. This will not take effect until July 1st. So the town has time to sit down with the union. We're offering up a number of ideas about ways to save money, and it's been talked about before, but we are at that point in time. For instance, a lot of towns are saving dollars with their employees by closing on, or a half day on Friday, taking that time, expanding it on a Tuesday, staying open for a little bit later, if you will, on a Tuesday. We're looking at ways to capture what Derek has said, that 3.75% in part of that process. But this is a process by which the collective bargaining agreements are governed by Chapter 150E, and it takes place over a period of time. It's not going to get settled within a week's time. The committee should not be. That's an illusion. So it's our intent that the notification goes forward, and then we sit down and we talk to them, how best would we like to accomplish this reduction in the lines? And we're looking for input back from the union for the for the budget that would go into effect on July 1st.
Brown?
Through you, Mr. Chairman, is that why that you increased your bargaining dollars by, say, $6,000, because you're going back to them and hoping that they will see, because your budget's based on Friday off, isn't it, Derek? You said that.
It is based on.
Okay, so it's based on Friday back. So now you've had to increase your bargaining money to go back to them.
That's a good point.
That makes perfect sense to me.
Well, Mr. Chairman, if I could just finish up, because I want to be absolutely clear about this. They are at the table with us, because I sent them, I'm happy to finish it with a copy of it, notification to all the bargaining units back in January, that we were anxious to get back to the table for fiscal 2012, which is the year that we're in. So they're at the table with us, and we're expressing to them everything that we've talked about, so that they would have options and ways to negotiate with us to settle agreements, but also understand that there's going to be some impact to employees here.
Paulson?
Well, just continuing on this, and I apologize, with this 3.7% approximately, what does that represent in terms of dollars? I hesitate that we use the word savings, but I guess that's how I'll put it. How many dollars are involved with that?
Approximately $280,000.
$280,000. Okay, thank you.
Mr. McDonald?
Just two things. One of the things that changed on the budget from last time is the Upper Cape location. There's a difference in that number. just so you know, because I know he was looking for it.
Mr. Chairman, we did receive, and you was copied on it, a certification that the upper Cape, and this is let me digress for 1 second, because Mr. McDonald brings up an excellent point. This is what I would call, and it's in my budget, as a budget buster, because we don't have a say. 4 out of the 6 communities can say what they want to do, and we're in the caboose going around the tracks like everybody else, paying the extra 9+%. And what we intend to do is to work hard to try to understand what their needs are, but certainly that's way above 2.5%, our levy limit for our dollars. It's certainly up above what we can charge for user fees and other services we talked about earlier. So this is a process by which regional school districts have basically shivered for many years, and it's time that people start talking about it, and as the town administrator, I intend to bring it to the attention, because we don't have a choice. It's a number that's inserted, voted upon. We can vote no, and we're still gonna get the 9+% increase.
All right, we've also, in a conversation this afternoon, where the town administrator's office has agreed to try to set up a meeting with Mr. Farr to come see us. He also needs to see the selectmen as well, who really have more power than we do. Hopefully he'll be able to accommodate both of us. We'd like to have him next week with the school, if we can, but it may go later than that.
I'm not sure to reserve my next comment for the joint meeting discussion or now. What's up?
Then I would do.
I mean, look, I've been doing this for 28 years. Never have dealt with a budget like this. And that meeting Saturday left me a little stunned. I mean, first off, you worked hard on the budget. I'm positive of that. They all worked hard on the budget, but to sit in that room, I just got the worst feeling that it was just almost like a game of chicken between the two boards. Not our board, because we really, we're an advisory board, if you will. But I got that feeling, and what scares me is that now it's $2.3 million. That's a real number, and that's still in play. And if it doesn't get taken care of, that's, you want a budget buster, that's a budget buster.
Correct.
And I didn't feel, and maybe I'm out of line by saying this, but I don't feel the selectmen really understood where it was in the process, where we were. Maybe I'm wrong, but I didn't feel like they understood where we were in the process, that you've worked hard, that Mr. Rabinovich has worked hard, that several people have come looking at this number, and I think there was a lot of concessions on both sides. I really saw that, and that's, to me, that's something that's important. But to leave that hanging out there on Saturday, that's an issue, in my opinion. That's an issue that, they need to wake up and see this is a real number, and this is coming down quick.
Mr. Chairman, just real quick. I'm with Bonnie because I want to go to lunch, because at some point I totally lost my concentration, because Mr. McDonald is absolutely correct. We've used the term, and it was used before I even got here, kicking the can. We've got to get out of that business. We've got to get out of that business. We've got to face these are real issues, they're real life issues. If we don't get our 3.75%, or we don't get some concessions on closing downtown hall, people will be leaving town service. I've been talking about it, trying to alert my board, trying to alert anybody that would talk to us about it. Because, I'm just harking to one group. We sat in the same office, my office, the day before, and worked cooperatively to get as much state funding as we could from the Massachusetts School Building Authority, and to make sure that article was tight, and we're talking about getting those extra dollars in. If we can work hard on getting extra dollars to come in on a school building project, which is long overdue, in my opinion, and getting those dollars from the state because it's parked in Boston, we have to go get it, then what we should be able to do is solve the issue with regards to $2.2 million.
Good.
Yeah, I'm just really befuddled over all of this, I suppose. Because, I was pretty heartbroken Saturday afternoon. I was just pretty heartbroken over that whole thing. And I don't feel like we've made any progress from there forward. I do understand what the town administrator is saying, that, we're gonna present this to town meeting of, this is the contingency plan. The problem is if, we're gonna have to stick with it, and then if the unions don't play ball, then people are just gonna lose their job. There's just no other way around it. I am a little concerned over this $2.3 million difference in the school budget. And I was also made aware that the school department have already made changes, because I got a phone call today informing me that a very good friend has been laid off.
We have no idea.
So they are obviously doing something already.
And
That could be to meet this year's appropriation as well.
Yeah.
We don't know.
No,
I don't want to take anything as secondhand information. I think we'll have the school committee here next week. We can ask them, actually, we'll have Mr. Sweat and I believe Dr. Benedict's, we can ask some questions at that point. All right? What this comes down to in the end, I believe the proposed budget, and that's where the 2.7 comes from, is that the proposed budget is what you have to use in your proposals as the floor. But the floor can make any, it can vote any amounts it wants, as long as it meets state minimums. And not only that, but we have right of First Amendment. So, and I would not like to see it come to this, but we may be the ones saying the middle column is the one. That puts us in a very tough spot. So I would encourage both the town administrator and the schools in every way to try, and the school committee and the board of selectmen to try to find common ground before we go, because that's going to be a very tough meeting, particularly for us.
And Mr. Chairman, if that number doesn't move, just real quick,
Mhm.
let's just face up to what it is, okay? We're talking about closing buildings. We're talking about taking programs completely out of town government. Derek has run some numbers. If that number doesn't change,
We're probably looking at laying off.
What, the 27 are you talking about?
yeah.
But I didn't see anything that said that we had to pay the 27.
No,
The
that's
only
what,
thing that we've quoted so far is the charter required that the proposal contain the school's number. It does not say that the final budget must contain the school number.
Right.
That's what we're struggling with.
and once again,
Mr. Paulson?
Well, Derek was about to say something in terms of what the effect would be if 27 is the number.
I don't know if it'd really be helpful to
Well,
but it's, we'd probably be looking at straight salary, they're approximately 61 employees, and that's, then if we had to going into unemployment, you figure roughly for every 2 people that are laid off, you need to lay off another to cover unemployment. You're looking at close to 90 of our employees when we essentially, besides our department heads, have the equivalent of 121 full-time employees.
Yeah, and that's what I'm saying. This is a real number, and it looks like a game of chicken on Saturday, and I don't think, they're not just playing with, that's a big number, and it is not gonna
the
be,
school's gonna tighten the belt.
well, I'm not gonna sit here and tell you who's gonna tighten the belt or no, but to leave that meeting, and I'm not saying I was heartbroken, I was going in another direction, but I was very upset because I just didn't feel like there was an awareness of how important and how critical this is, that we seem to have that awareness because we deal with it, but I just didn't see it in other places that I thought we should see it in. That was my problem with it.
Mr. Chairman?
Remember, also remember on Saturday, the school showed us the impact of the level funding on their part,
Yes.
right? Not any further reductions from the level funding, which would also include more jobs. I don't think it would be at the level that we just read in the town, but I know that they're looking at, I think it was 26 they showed us the other day, they're probably looking at somewhere around 40 jobs.
I had it somewhere.
Mrs. Brown?
I'd just like to say, to the town administrator, that I do believe for the most part, you've done a really good job as far as cutting back making these cuts. You know, I think we all see little areas here and there that we like to see, but I think the school is really going to have to do some serious looking, either if they don't get an override or if they don't get any debt exclusion. I think the town has really put forth a good effort for the most part. That's just from what I've seen.
Mrs. Cattouli?
Folks, John brought up the whole override and debt exclusion thing. I have a great concern that the town has hacked its budget down to the bare minimum, and people will be taking salary cuts, et cetera. And then we go into town meeting, regardless of how this all turns out, say that, you know, the school committee comes down with a number and we meet and this budget is it and everything, then we get into a 2.5 override, and that 2.5 override only says, for school department employees, to return 25 employees. That is their contingency plan, as far as getting back to what they need. And I have a concern that it's gonna be a fight on town meeting floor. Well, if you're gonna put 25 teachers back to work, you're gonna put another municipal maintenance man back on, et cetera, et cetera. You see where I'm going here? I'm really concerned over that. That, you know, I'm not saying that the extra isn't needed for kids, but I'm just concerned of people wondering, is that all we're gonna pay for? We're gonna reduce the town services because we need more for education. So,
We can't, there's a different place to take from the town.
All right.
I know.
I also say this conversation is a little premature because we are missing a number. There is a state minimum. And I've asked Dr. Rabinowitz to bring that next week. All right, we are missing that number. So there's even a floor that they can get to and no further down. Mr. Paulson?
Two questions again. Dave, 2 questions. We're asking the town employees to take approximately 2.75% pay cut. Does anybody know if anybody has asked the teachers to take a 2.75% pay cut?
No, we should have the official answer on that next week.
Okay, well,
I think that's only fair. Let's get the facts, not the hearsay.
Right, well, that was my question. My second question, Jeff Sweat brought up something that was interesting on Saturday, for those of you who were there and for the people here. And that was the growth rate of the benefits for over 12 years versus the growth rate in what he called the controllable expenses. And the difference was a factor of about 3, give or take. Roughly 2% for the town and the schools, and roughly 8% for the benefits. Okay? So, and this is 8% a year over 12 years. It seems to me if we're going to tackle this problem, it's time to tackle it on the benefit side. And unfortunately, the employees, both in the school and in the town, are not going to like that. But we've got to recognize that we've got to bring that benefit, again, in my opinion, that level of benefit increase down to a level that's more in keeping with the revenues that we have available.
I agree.
We really ought to figure that out.
Mr. Andrews?
Mr. Chairman, Mr. Paulson is dead on. And in every collective bargaining agreement, we've got all but 3 settled for the back years. So don't forget, we had fiscal 2007, 8, 9, 10, and 11 to deal with, right? And we're in 12. All of the agreements that we wrote on the town side included increased co-pays for healthcare. It also had a cost associated with, we wanted people just to check the bills when they went for inpatient care, outpatient care, just check the bill, body knows what I'm talking about. I got the service, it's right here. We wanted to build in that level of accountability. This was prior to the state putting this new law in effect in July, Chapter 69 of the Acts of 2011, that now tells cities and towns that they can engage in this process more quickly. But the point of it is that he's right on. And we sought to get this going up front in terms of taking ownership of the healthcare plans. We have a very generous plan where people can select, from really the Volkswagen to the Cadillac if they want. You compare that to the state GIC that had 2 increases last year. It's like a vanilla plan. So this is a plan that to keep the program moving forward, which is a distinct benefit for employees to come to work for the town. But in each and every one of those collective bargaining agreements, we got what we thought was the best carve-out for health care benefits, and we'll continue to do that going forward. It might be something where we talk about additional contribution. We're at 75-25 right now. We might ask that we go to 60-40, something like that. So, but those negotiations, once again, are going forward.
If I just might continue, and I know this bores people to death, but you said, well, we make substantial changes. I appreciate that, and I understand that, but what are the numbers associated with that? If you were to tell me that these changes that have been made will bring the percentage down from 7% down to 5%, that's one thing. If you were to tell me that they were gonna go from 7% down to 3%, that's another matter. What we're getting is we're getting broad generalizations, and I don't mean to fight here, but I wanna know, myself, where we're headed in terms of the numbers. Are we gonna get down to the benefits, looking out 5 years, sitting here now, out 5 years from now, 6 years, 7 years from now, are the benefits going to go to a 1.5% level, so that a Jeff Sweat doesn't sit out there in 5 or 6 years saying, gee, looking back, it's still 12% or 8, 9%. We should know that now. That's my point.
I don't know that we can know that now. I think he's planning and starting to negotiate and take care. We need to set the goals and start the process.
That's my point.
I'll agree, all right?
That's my
And that's not happening right now. I will also warn you that any reduction, that minimum number I talked about, any reduction in benefits will not change that minimum number, because benefits are part of the calculation, but it does mean more employees in the classroom. Okay, so that's why I would say, let's postpone until next week. Well, you know, Dr. Levinas is going to be prepared to give us a very detailed explanation of that minimum.
Okay.
All right, and then we'll see how, it's tough. Jeff's point, I think, mainly was we're replacing teachers with benefits. And we should not.
That's what it boiled down to.
No, well, I know we can go on all night here about this, but
I would prefer not to.
Okay, then let me just leave it with this. If we hadn't started those processes, we wouldn't be able to get to the root of the issue, which is to get control of these costs. And I don't care if it's 2% or 1.5%, we made an effort to get it done before the state legislature gave us the act to give us the tool to do that. And this is going back 2 years in time, because we knew these costs were going up. Nobody has a $5 copay in the world, and so you know it doesn't even cover the cost of somebody opening the window to make your next appointment. So it's proactive, and I just want to leave it at that. Thank you. You like that? It's a healthcare analogy. I know you like it.
Any other comments? Town Administrator, we thank you for the updates.
Thank you. Mr. Chairman, does that do it?
Yes, it does.
Thank you. May I just inform the committee of 2 things and ask you for your gracious indulgence? I have activated the town accountant screening committee. I don't remember Ray was a member of that, not only in 1 phase, but 2 phases. Ms. Marcosa will be reaching out through you to Mr. Gray or whoever you'd like to appoint to that screening committee. We have the resumes and the background documentation, and we're hopeful to get something scheduled in the next week's time.
Well, Mr. Gray is away, right?
He is
will
away.
not be back for, I guess it would be Friday. Does that fit in?
Can I check with, I'll check with Bob. I'll check with her
Okay.
first time. Okay,
We'll go from there,
great, thank you, appreciate it.
okay? I will bring up one other item, all right, before you leave, and I would ask you to deliver a message to the board of selectmen. And that is your own departure. We had departure of the town accountant and it cost us dearly. And we eventually found a solution, I understand. And this committee advocated very strongly for an interim town accountant. And I think I speak for all the members. It's great to go to outside organizations and to go through a process of hiring an interim, et cetera. But between now and that period, when we step away, we're gonna need an interim town administrator to be the final decision maker. We're not gonna be able to wait. And I think our committee should strongly urge the Board of Selectmen to understand that they can't wait any weeks and months
I agree.
to put a town administrator in. It'd be total chaos.
Mr. Chairman.
And I would encourage you, if you feel that we have anyone on staff who's able to fill in until such time as they select an interim town administrator officially, I would hope that they would consider that. I'm not gonna ask anybody on the committee for a motion, but if you want to speak to this, feel free. Am I the only one?
No, I think
No,
you're
I
close. The idea has to
absolutely
be
agree
out,
with you.
yeah.
It has to be ASAP and with as much transition as possible. I'm heartbroken over all this as well, because I just feel like, oh my God, here we go again. You know, I'm sorry, Mark.
That's okay.
I didn't even get a chance to even speak to you, Sandy, because the whole press wanted to be there, but I don't know, I feel like we're stumbling one more time, and now it's gonna,
We don't need to stumble again on top of that.
I know.
mean, if we have a vacuum in there, it's gonna be very hard to get any business done. It's gonna be very hard to deal with emergencies, et cetera. We can't, I realize we can call emergency selectmen meetings, but we all know how easy it is to get quorum when you call an emergency meeting. That's not a criticism of them at all. We're just, as I'm saying, I would hope that if you have a suggestion, your suggestions, et cetera, alternatives, that you would present them to them, and that they might take action on.
I've made suggestions. I'm writing a transition document with the schedule. It's not that far away. I'm available. And I appreciate the context of your points, because it is a critical time. And if I could, Mr. Chairman, just for 1 minute, it has been a critical time. The town really needs to step up at this point. They need to really get clear as to outside agencies' documents that I won't go into great detail, but the Mass Department of Revenue wrote a report 12 years ago, said, you gotta get this down. We gotta get really a stable plan for not only the town administrator's office, but for the finance offices. In some cases, that's worked. 2 years ago, they wrote the same document. You can take the cover off and dust it off, and it's the same thing. They said the same thing. So I'll work to my best ability with the current board and the new board to say, listen, this is what we can do, this is what's available. I do agree with you. I think we have talent that can step up in town hall, because you can handle it on the interim basis until you can find an interim, which does take some time. So, and then with regards to the search, sometimes it could take 6, 8, 10 months. Other cities and other towns have gone through that process, and municipalities. So I'll be as supportive and as accessible as possible, and I hope, and I will convey that to the board.
Of greatest concern to this committee is the year-end close. Would it be possible to have,
Mr. Cole?
pardon?
Mr. Cole?
Justin
Mr.
Cole.
Cole, Mr. Cole, Justin
Justin
Cole. All right, come in and meet with us. Probably, our next schedule would probably be, should we say mid-April? To discuss,
As soon as possible.
to start to discuss that, or, well, we're also trying to get through all the
Yeah, I
articles as
understand.
well. All right, and I think that meeting would be, I would like, the committee would like to meet with Mr. Cole to discuss that process starting now, because we are going to have, they're an agent filling in, and then we don't know where will be the town administrator. I think we'd like to know how that will affect us.
Yeah,
Because
absolutely,
we
Mr.
have-
Chairman. If I can make a suggestion, because it was already scheduled in, and we talked about this back in December, I think it
Mhm.
was December 14th, that we have a work group coming in from Powers and Sullivan that will be in sometime in that time frame. So
In when, I'm sorry?
mid-April, so that we can get that first 6 months of fiscal 2012 report
Right.
that we talked about. So let me check with Justin, I'll check his schedule and what Powers and Sullivan has, and certainly he can come and speak with the committee to give you an update as about not only the year
I
end
think it would
close.
be helpful to us if both of them were able to come in, and we do sort of have a little break there before town meeting as well, where we could probably fit something in if the members are agreeable. Would you want to do that? Would you give me the freedom to schedule a meeting somewhere, if it's the 4th, it would be the 11th or 18th?
Won't be the 4th.
It won't be the 4th, no, I said the 11th or the 18th, if that's convenient for them. Otherwise, it would be after town meeting.
I'll
But I
check
think
his
as soon as we
schedule.
can possibly.
I'll check their
and
schedule.
give us some alternate dates,
Sure.
because that is of major concern to us, because if nothing else too, there'll be requests for transfers, there's gonna be a whole bunch of things, and we know we wanted to expedite this whole thing.
Sure.
Mr. Paulson?
For various reasons, we have in the past, and in the not too distant past, moved the town meeting date ahead a little bit. 2 years ago we did, because we had a problem, as I recall, with the,
We moved it back.
we moved it from No, we moved it ahead because we had something in the newspaper. I forget the reasons for it. But anyway, would it be possible we can consider moving April 23rd to, I'm going to take a date, May 23rd?
I'm following you, your head is my back, I mean, my head is your back.
I will tell you, there is a problem there. My understanding is that we'll have to talk about that in a non-public situation with the moderator.
Oh, okay.
Okay.
All right.
And that's really her call. It's on my call. And, that can be addressed.
Okay.
Surely. But, not at this meeting.
That's not going to solve.
She's not even in town right now.
That's not going to solve the problem, but it might get us towards
And the other thing is,
solving a
we've
problem.
got the election coming up, the first week in April. You're gonna have two new selectmen, no matter what. They should be making the decisions, they should be part of the decision going forward too.
Is,
I understand.
is the special legislation, has it been passed, signed by the governor yet? Where does that stand?
That's not our purview. I know about it. It's our, obviously, if it had been signed, we would have heard already.
Thanks, Ron. Good guys.
Good luck.
Pardon?
Where does it stand?
Well, he reported last night to the selectmen heads and, that they're in the process of trying to work it through the legislature. They've gone through the governor's office.
We may not have to.
Keep up the good work, Derek.
What's your recommendation? All good families.
Moving on to the agenda.
A couple of times.
We're trying to move along. Moving on to the agenda, I'm going to skip all the articles and we'll go to the revenue discussion. The question on the revenue discussion is going to come down. Next week, we're going to have to talk about the debt exclusions and that the schools are requesting and the override. Next week, when the school board comes in, they have 4 articles associated with debt exclusion and override. Those, it appears that those are the only revenues available to us, provided the board of selectmen said they want to put them on the
You
ballot.
confused me by calling them revenue, you just confused me, it's okay, I got you.
Okay, no problem. That's as far as I'm going to go today. All right. Next item, committee business, the community events committee membership appointment.
I haven't heard from her, so I'm sure she got busy doing whatever it was she was doing, so I'll have to find out what she plans on doing next week.
All right. I already heard they're moving their meeting night, but that's okay.
Is that what she
We'll
said to
wait, we'll
you?
wait for official word.
She didn't tell
All
me.
right. I'll wait for the official, for you to bring the official word. The schedule for warrant article reviews with petitioners. Those are all going to be on April 4th.
Let's see that, yeah.
Okay, and we don't have to write recommendations for those. All right, I'll start putting our recommendations out. The sooner we get information to Kelly, the faster. We'll get this whole process done. So,
I think Kelly should be able to make a motion on those.
I know you're all gonna love this, but whoever made the motion tonight should be the one to write the motion. I'm sorry, write our recommendation.
Can I ask a
So she will send out a note to everyone who made the motions. All right, and I would ask you to, take a pass at it. I think we'll all help out. All right, but we just need somebody to take the first pass. If you need any follow-up on conversations we had tonight or whatever, I'm sure Kelly can help you on that. I usually get the minutes out pretty quick. It'd be nice to have the drafts on these. It's only 6 articles. It'd be nice to have the drafts for next week so everybody can start helping with the edit. Okay?
He didn't sign anything, so let's go on to these.
We're not gonna tell you.
Mr. Chairman?
Yes, ma'am.
We tabled 2 articles, do you want to keep up on our schedule as written here? We tabled 2 things from the 14th, the parking fee transfer, which is number 16, and 33 was we wanted clarification on that police vehicle, the way it was written.
No, 16, and, I'm sorry, what was the other one?
33.
And the only reason we tabled 33 was because Big Mouth over here decided that. I remember the conversation, I went back to the town meeting tapes and reviewed it, and someone reminded me, sometimes you hear what you want to hear.
Yeah.
But basically, those 3 vehicles in the discussion on town meeting, and I didn't transcribe it, I have it at home. They asked for 3 vehicles because the other vehicles are starting to already have 40,000 miles of new ones, and the women and men of the police department needed new vehicles. But it was 3 police cruisers. So
It wasn't specific,
was not specific. I
but
actually
this is
pulled it
what they
off.
purchased.
But this is what they purchased, is 3 police vehicles. Now, these weren't what I envisioned when I was, and again, I wasn't on the FinCom at the time. I was thinking 3 more police cruisers because of the rotation, and it actually came out, and this article is much more clear than what it is. So the question really is answered as far as, it's just more clear what they were purchasing. My personal feeling is if you're gonna buy something and you state it one way and people are thinking that way, then you get what you want, but you get something different later, that's not so good. But what are we gonna do at this point? They're still police cruisers, whether they look like, whether they're really nice cruisers or they're different, they're still police cruisers. Unless anybody has an
In
argument.
that case, I would need a motion to take it off the table.
Motion, take it off the table.
Second, so
Second.
moved. Discussion?
Can we
Although-
just, I'm sorry, can we, well, we were having trouble with the way, the grammar here. And, I mean, if we, just to amend it to, parentheses around, 1 unmarked Ford Taurus and 2 marked Dodge Chargers, parentheses. Can we amend it to that?
Yes.
And then vote on it?
Yes.
Okay,
What is it now?
just put your,
Make it 3 instead of what looks like 6.
yeah.
The way that it's written. I already inquired, as they declared it to be a scrivener's error that needs to be changed at town meeting. All right. It's 33.
Yeah.
So I now need a motion to add an open parent before the word
1,
1,
and after.
the phrase 1 mark, and a closed parent after the word chargers.
Correct.
Do I have a second?
Second.
Any discussion? Seeing none, all in favor?
Aye.
Opposed? Abstentions? 700. I have a motion, get that out of order.
What, huh?
Can I have a motion for favorable action on the amended article?
Oh, okay.
Motion. Moved.
Mr. McDonald,
Second.
second Mr. Camerano. Any discussion? All in favor?
Aye.
Opposed? 700.
He was out when we mentioned who's gonna write up the motion.
That's right, anyone who makes a motion has to write the majority opinion.
I got stuck last time I was out. I had 3 that I didn't even know I had.
And so you get to pick the ones, you make sure, if you want to write on something, you should make the motion. You
Just
don't.
whatever you want me to
When I
write
get
on.
done, I don't have anyone else, I'll pick out who has to write what. To see, 16, and I need a motion, let's see.
No, I don't think we need to take that off the table yet. We're still waiting.
We're still waiting for information on that, correct?
Okay. I just wrote need more information, I don't remember what the discussion was about.
I'll put that out, I'll try to get that in as the first item for next week. Try to get it off the table as fast as possible.
Well,
I think I'm, pardon?
Ms. Ricky was here, talking about parking, reminds me, Ms. Ricky was here last week with a suggestion as to what we might do in terms of parking. And it looks to me, as I sit here, that we're gonna miss another summer of revenues. No criticism of her, I mean, she came up with an idea that maybe we move forward, So we dropped the 75,000 out, looking at probably several $100,000 of potential revenue, which is unclear to me as to why we did that. And she had a part of an attempt at a solution, and we're here a week later, and again, no criticism of her, but are we gonna have, it would seem to me that we should have the lines being painted the day after town meeting, and things should be rolling, because otherwise we're gonna be in July or August, and we'll miss the season.
I don't know that we can get it on the warrant. So that's part of the problem. The other thing is that I talked to her subsequent to our meeting. This Thursday, there is the open hours with the town council. She has assured me that she will be there. I would not stand in the way of the door at the appointed time, all right? She's gonna sit with town council and find out what has to be done to do that, because there are some questions as to whether or not they can in fact use the money for that. If they can, how do they go about it? Does there have to be a motion at town meeting? There's a whole number of issues that we need to get information from town council. And she's assured me she will expedite it as fast as she can. And I have to, you know, I'll agree with her. She's also been told by town, I believe the town administrator has told her that she surely can talk with council to get his opinion.
One of the things that maybe I'm a little obsessive compulsive. Maybe that's the word I'm looking for.
You think?
You think? Okay, so the article I think is, I mean, the concept is really good. And one of the issues I have with the way that things proceed sometimes in this town is the concept is absolutely good. The follow-up is horrible. It's not just saying, okay, this is what we're going to do. We're going to generate revenue. Well, you need to know what you're going to do with that revenue, how you're going to collect it, how you're going to account for it. And we have such a poor history of not knowing those facts. We say, this is great, let's go out and do it. Well, you know, next thing we know, where's the 75,000 or whatever it is? And well, we don't know. We don't follow the entire process. And that includes not only coming up with a great plan, but coming up with how to handle that plan correctly.
The first step is to find out is if we can even obtain the revenues.
Right, but I just want to make
And
sure
then we
that
can go through the rest of it.
that's my thing. We need to know how we're going to handle it after it's over with, because you got 70, and I'm just using a figure, it's probably not the right figure, but $75,000 floating out there in space, and nobody seems to know what's going on. And, you know, that's if you look at our management letter, that's a clear example of why we have the management letter. We don't follow through. Okay. No, you have to hand up quickly.
Go ahead.
Why can't we just make this very simple? We have down at the pier, we have a gate, somebody's collecting money, and there's another gate that lets you out. Why can't we go to the selectmen and say, pass a bylaw, do something, put a gate up there, and a person there, so that the cars coming in have to pay, and the cars going out can only get out if they've paid. I mean,
But
why not do that
But,
for the summer?
but what happens when they leave?
It's a city day, all right? It's in the realm of the police chief. He's trying to do what he can. You know, I think it's a great plan to come up with this other stuff. Things are going to move slowly. Parking is not going to be free on the pier that I know of. It's always been.
Never has been.
Yes, and it will not again this year.
Right.
This was you know, the question came up, could we automate the items, you know, the whole process? And it didn't move fast enough, and then somebody came up with an alternative. In light of everything that's happened in the last 7 days, I don't understand how we could possibly expect either Attorney Bowen or Ms. Ritchie to possibly have come back to us with anything, or even have made any progress. I mean, it wasn't doable. Yeah, with all that's going on, it wasn't doable. And I'm not trying to defend anybody, it's just, let's be practical.
Oh, I just want to tell you guys, I mean, come hell or high water, if anybody can get it done, it's Susan Reagan, okay? And it's not maybe it's not a $75,000 project, it might be a $25,000
I just need
project.
that number.
But it's step one, it's phase one. Okay, maybe we can't have it all this summer,
Right.
but maybe we can have 1/3 of it. And if it's at all possible, that woman's gonna make it happen legally and through the proper channels, and it'll all be accounted for when it comes back around, believe me.
Okay.
The other side is even when she
AKA
made,
the mouth.
if I can,
I love them.
the types of things that you're gonna run into is this proposal was made, it came back for a request for $35,000. $35,000 is a capital item. The charter says it has to be handled a certain way. At $24,999, it can be handled completely differently. All right, and that's part of the thing as well. But there's a lot of work that has to happen here very quickly, and I agree with Bonnie. If anybody will get it done in time, it'll be her.
Okay.
And maybe in the interim, we may still be stuck with the same system that we've had in the past with, work-off people and a whole bunch of other things. I wish it could be faster, but we're not a business, we're a town, and we're limited by what we can do. Are there any liaison reports?
Or 10, 12.
Any other new business?
Did you have a,
Well, I was gonna say, on the liaison, just my continuing
Okay.
conversation with the assessor, that Walmart apparently and the other big box stores are in fact looking to change their method of ownership of the goods within the stores, and the net effect of that would be to drop the taxes that they pay, and that we therefore collect. And I'm trying to get from her what that would mean to Wareham, because if they get an abatement, somebody's gonna have to make it up. And you can look around this table and we're the one. And I have no idea how much that will be. I don't know if it's 5,000, 10,000, 50,000. But the balls will.
I don't think she knows either. I mean, you're right, that is a process that's going on. It's a personal property, that's the inventory. And usually corporations keep their inventories as low as they can on December 31st. Obviously, the holiday season helps them. But this change evidently nearly wipes out the personal property tax. And if not, it doesn't wipe it out totally, then it could be significant dollars here. And again, that means our revenues drop, and we've got to find a way to cover it. And there's only one other way that I know of, which is to go through the tax rate. And then we're trying to avoid that something, but that's what happens. Any unanticipated business? We said no. Approval of the minutes, March 8th, 2012.
motion to approve those minutes?
Motion to approve.
Second.
Second. Any corrections?
Thank you, Ronnie.
All in favor?
Aye.
Aye.
Opposed? Abstain one. I have 601. I also need a motion for, it can't possibly be right, March 20th.
It can't be.
Nope, can't be. We made it 15th, didn't we?
Oh, it's the 14th.
The 14th? Well, it's not on the agenda, so we'll have to wait a week. What can I say?
Sorry. God love us all.
Next meeting is obviously next Wednesday. Could people make it at 6 o'clock?
No, you're really pushing my luck.
Pardon?
I don't know. I mean, I could try. I just can't promise.
Can we get, well, we've got 6 here. We should be able, can we get a quorum? Can anybody else make it at 6?
What's next?
I can make it.
Sure. Maybe 6? Okay.
Yeah.
All right, that's gonna help some of the people we have scheduled in, other than the school committee. Okay. Wow, adjournment.
Motion to adjourn.
So the 28th, you want it at 6 o'clock?
Second.
6 o'clock.
Can't talk anymore. We're adjourning.
Motion to adjourn, Mr. McDonald, second by Mrs. Clark. All in favor?
Aye.
Aye.
Opposed? Abstentions?